I was sitting in the middle of a high-stakes board meeting. Bored out of my mind, I decided to text my virtual girlfriend. Babe, I want to see you in a black strappy dress tonight. Can you send me a photo? Then, a second later, my heart stopped. That exact message flashed across the giant screen in the boardroom. It was the text I had just sent, word for word, but that wasn't even the terrifying part. I met my current virtual partner on an app called Quinshui. Neither of us had ever shared a photo of our faces, but we hit it off so well that things moved fast. Before long, we were in a full-blown digital relationship. I always had these little requests for her. Eventually, I got bold and asked for some spicy photos. When she finally sent that first shot from the waist down, I was absolutely floored. I thought, what kind of goddess am I dating? Those long, slender legs were a work of art I could stare at for years. Whoa, did you see that? The CEO just sent that message. And what was that about a black strappy dress? Hey, wake up, man. Did you see the screen? This is easily the biggest scandal of the year. I was still in a complete state of shock. For a second, I thought I was dreaming and forced myself to look up. The moment I raised my head, my eyes locked right onto the CEO. He was staring back with a gaze that was cold, sharp, and indifferent. I didn't have any other choice. I quickly bowed my head back down. Under the CEO's heavy scrutiny, the chaotic whispering in the room died down. I kept my eyes glued to the floor while my heart hammered against my ribs. A moment later, a new notification buzzed on my phone. Okay, I'll wear it for you tonight. I'm in a meeting right now. Let's talk later. One mo. This CEO always seemed so distant and serious to everyone, but in reality, he knew exactly how to be sweet and playful in private. This whole situation was going to end in a disaster. My mind started racing, imagining the fallout at the office. Babe, talk to me. Are you mad because I didn't reply fast enough? I'll make it up to you, okay? My screen was flooded with unread messages. Every single one of them was from my online boyfriend. He thinks I'm ignoring him out of spite, but he has no idea what just happened. The truth is, I just don't have the guts to do it. Suddenly, a photo of someone wearing black stockings was sent to the chat. Wait, aren't those the same black stockings the CEO saw in the meeting this morning? Even the design of the high heels is exactly the same. Right then, the director walked up to my desk and asked, Sensei, what are you looking at? The president wants to see you in his office immediately. Now I've really done it. I'm in deep trouble. I gripped my phone so hard my knuckles turned white. I stood awkwardly in front of the president's desk, trembling. I managed to choke out, Did you need me, sir? At this point, every ounce of excitement about my online romance had vanished. If he finds out I'm just an employee under his thumb, a breakup is inevitable. The president was focused on his computer, doing God knows what. Meanwhile, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing in my hand. The president looked up sharply, his face twisted with annoyance. I'm so sorry for interrupting your work. I'll turn it off right now. The suffocating tension in the room just kept building. We stayed like that for nearly 20 agonizing minutes. Finally, with a look of pure disappointment, the president stood up from his desk. He glared at me coldly and said, You looked completely out of it during the meeting. You weren't paying attention at all, and last month's project was full of major errors. You know this company doesn't keep idle people on the payroll, right? Hearing the president say that made my entire body tremble. Is he going to fire me? I stammered. I'm so sorry. Some things came up at home lately, and I've been distracted. You have my word, sir. It won't happen again. But the truth was, I spent all night talking to the man standing right in front of me. Our phone call was so intense that I barely got a wink of sleep. He narrowed his eyes and warned, If there is even one more mistake in the future, get out of my sight immediately. The CEO waved his hand dismissively, signaling for me to leave. I made it back to my desk in one piece, feeling like I'd escaped a death sentence. I looked down and saw dozens of unread messages from my online boyfriend. I rubbed my aching temples, trying to process the chaos. Honey, please talk to me, okay? His message read. I'm so frustrated today. That useless employee messed up the project last month. It cost the company a fortune. Sniff, sniff. I stared at the latest message the CEO sent to my personal phone. A chill ran down my spine. He's talking about me, isn't he? Useless employee? I typed back cautiously, Calm down. My own boss just scolded me, too. I took a deep breath and added, Maybe you should be a little kinder to your subordinates. The best thing would be to control their salary and increase their dependence on the company. I sent the message with a sly smile, already imagining an extra zero on my next paycheck. A second later, a reply popped up. What company does your boss work for? I'll help you get rid of him. How dare he scold you? I sighed. It turned out he only focused on one part of my message. The part about my boss scolding me, and not the part about my raise. He didn't even see it. Well, I decided to just let things flow naturally. After work, I stayed behind at the office all by myself. I had to try and fix the project I ruined last month. In real life, I couldn't afford to leave a bad impression on the president. If I did, how was I ever going to win him over? If I could just perform excellently at work, maybe he'd fall for me for real. Thinking about the president's attractive body, I couldn't help but giggle to myself. What are you doing here laughing like an idiot instead of going home? A cold, sharp voice came from right behind me. The hair on my neck stood up as I stammered. Mr. President, you're still here? I'm just trying to work a little harder. After all, I made that mistake on last month's project. The president didn't say a single word after hearing that. He just turned around and headed back inside. As I watched that cold, unreachable man walk away, I flashed a wicked smile. Honey, are you off work yet? I messaged my online crush, the president. The reply came back almost instantly. Just about to leave the office. I'm going to grab some food. I'm a good boy, right? I felt a pang of guilt seeing him chat with me in that sweet tone. It was hard to believe he and that human iceberg were the same person. Such a good boy. Here's a kiss for you. I quickly snapped a selfie of my lips, being careful not to show my work uniform. How bold. Speaking of which, we've known each other for a long time now. I want to see you. My boss sent the message while I was taking a breather. I froze, feeling completely lost. Was he not satisfied with our daily online fun? Did he want a real-life confrontation? Now wasn't the time to meet. He didn't know the real me yet. Not well enough. Anyway, you're mean. We don't know each other? I've already shown you every side of me. Luckily, he didn't push too hard about meeting in person. Drafting a client proposal while flirting with my boss, it was a surreal feeling. I didn't expect him to come back so quickly. He didn't even speak to me as he rushed straight into his office. Honey, I'm sorry. His next message read, I left the lingerie you like at the office, and I couldn't find the black set, only the purple. Do you like it? Then, a photo popped up on my screen. I zoomed in and nearly spat out my drink. This wasn't just a nightgown. It was basically a harness. Aside from a few key spots being covered, it left nothing to the imagination. I shook my head, telling myself I couldn't keep thinking about it. I forced myself to calm down and focus. I'm at the office right now, he messaged. There are employees working overtime outside, so I can't talk to you on the phone today. What a drag. I hate that I have to work late. Seeing that message made my blood boil instantly. We're the same person, so why do I get treated so differently in person? A wicked idea struck me, and I typed back with a mischievous grin on my face. Remember how you said the other day that you'd do whatever I told you? Inside his office, the CEO saw the message and his cheeks turned bright red. Here is my first order. Put on that purple lingerie, throw a coat over it, and go take your employees out to eat. Right after I hit send, I quickly put my phone away to look professional, but I couldn't stop my heart from racing. Could this actually be considered roleplay? I don't think this is a good idea, especially since I don't know that employee well. What if they saw me by accident? Weren't you the one who said you wanted something exciting? Maybe we should just leave it at that. To be honest, I was shocked when I first found out my online date had a bit of a submissive streak. Knowing he was the CEO made me even more eager to put my plans into practice. Fine, I get it, his reply came. Don't be mad. As soon as I got that message, I shut down my computer. Soon, the entire office fell into a heavy silence. I strained my ears and heard a soft, rustling sound coming from the CEO's office. I had to fight the urge to just burst in there right then. Once the silence was absolute, I stood up and pretended I was getting ready to head home. Right on cue, the CEO stepped out of his office. I watched him out of the corner of my eye. Sure enough, he was wearing a long coat, hiding the thin layer of purple lace underneath. I felt a surge of dark excitement. CEO, I've finished almost all of my work for the day, I said aloud. I'll be heading out first. Wait a moment. The CEO stopped me right there. I feigned ignorance, looking back at him with pure curiosity. It's late, and I haven't eaten yet. Come have dinner with me. I could almost hear him grinding his teeth as he forced those words out. I pretended to be overwhelmed and flattered, quickly waving him off. Oh no, sir, you're too kind. I'm just doing my job. I'll just grab a bite at home. Stop talking nonsense. If you don't come, don't bother showing up for work tomorrow. He didn't give me a chance to refuse before turning around and walking away. Suddenly, my phone buzzed with a new message. Honey, what should I take her to eat? I've never invited anyone out before. I watched the CEO walking ahead of me, his back stiff and formal. It was so adorable, I almost burst out laughing. I typed back, why not ask your employee? Hearing her opinion might be a good idea. I followed him all the way down to the ground floor of the building. I kept pace behind him until we reached his car. Mr. President, thank you so much for the invitation. I promise to work even harder for the company from now on. What do you want to eat? He interrupted, his voice cold and sharp. I felt a twinge of annoyance, knowing he only showed his soft side to my online persona. While the real-life me didn't even deserve to shine his shoes, an idea sparked in my mind to play a little prank. Let's go for some spicy hot pot, sweating it out in this weather, and then taking a shower. It's the best feeling. The CEO hesitated the moment he heard the words, hot pot. Seeing his reaction, I immediately decided to add fuel to the fire. Actually, should we go somewhere cheaper? Isn't hot pot a bit too expensive for this? The second I finished speaking, the CEO whipped his head around and glared at me. Without a word, he slammed his foot down on the accelerator. He floored it, and the car shot forward like a rocket. We didn't speak the whole way, and I watched his expressionless face out of the corner of my eye. I had clearly managed to get under his skin. Inside, I was howling with laughter. Go ahead, keep acting like you're so high and mighty. Keep pretending you're above it all. Just you wait and see. My mission of love was only just beginning today. Following my directions, the president soon arrived at a famous hot pot spot nearby. He stepped out of the car and saw the place was packed, the thick scent of spicy broth hanging in the air. The president hesitated, standing frozen at the entrance for a long time without moving a muscle. I walked right in with total confidence, grabbed a window seat, and started ordering from the menu. 10 minutes passed before he finally made a move. The president walked in cautiously and sat across from me, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. Boss, look how hot it is in here. Are you really going to keep that heavy coat on? Why not? Take it off and cool down for a bit. As I said that, I pulled off my work uniform. I was wearing a short-sleeved t-shirt underneath. The president didn't say a word, he just glared at me. But when he saw the shirt I was wearing, he froze in shock. I noticed his strange expression and looked down at myself. Panic hit me instantly. This was the exact same shirt I wore during our video call. Was I about to be exposed right here? Sensible, the president finally replied coldly. He looked down and started scrolling through his phone. I let out a long breath of relief. Suddenly, a notification popped up on my screen. Honey, an employee at my company is wearing the same clothes as you. But of course, my darling looks much better in them. I stared at the message, completely speechless. I guess love really does make people blind, no matter who they are. I summoned my courage and sent a reply. Don't you think she looks like me? How is that possible? In my heart, you're the best, baby. No one looks as good as you, no matter what they wear. We sat there in silence, both staring at our phones while the waiter gave us a weird look. I felt so strange in that moment, and a little embarrassed. I was taking a sip of water when I saw the message and spat it all out. I started coughing violently, feeling like I was about to pass out. My sudden outburst caught the CEO's attention immediately. I quickly stammered out an apology. But inside, I was reeling. This girl's way of talking was getting bolder by the second. Sending such provocative words in public, she definitely has some submissive tendencies. Soon enough, the food was served and placed on the table. I tucked my phone away. I started devouring the meal in front of me like I hadn't eaten in days. The CEO stared at his online date's profile one last time without replying. He finally put his phone down to eat. As time passed, the temperature around us kept rising higher and higher. Even in my short-sleeved t-shirt, I was starting to break a sweat. I couldn't imagine how hot the CEO was in that thick overcoat. I'm going outside for some air. Keep eating, he muttered. Without another word, he practically ran out of the hot pot restaurant. I watched him through the window glass. I could see him desperately fanning his jacket, trying to let the cold air hit his body. That finally calmed him down. Where the hell did you come from? Don't ruin the mood for me and my boys. Unless you want to spend the rest of your life rotting in a hospital bed. I was starting to get a little irritated myself. The CEO I brought here. How could I let people like you lay a finger on her? She's my woman. You don't get to touch her. I looked at the CEO, and she was absolutely glaring at me. I glared right back at her, refusing to back down. I'm literally saving you, and you're still looking at me like that? I wasn't about to take that attitude. I reached out and gave her backside another hard smack. I'm telling you, kid, what we see belongs to us. Stay out of this, or we'll teach you a lesson in respect you'll never forget. The three of them stopped talking and, fueled by the alcohol, lunged forward to take her by force. I didn't hesitate for a second and shoved the CEO behind my back. I grabbed the bald guy's arm and twisted it with everything I had. A scream ripped out of him instantly, sounding like a pig being slaughtered. If either of you takes one more step forward, I guarantee his arm is going to snap. Don't move. If you move again, my arm is going to break. Next time you get drunk, just go home and go to sleep early. If you keep acting reckless like this, things won't end well for you. I'll make sure you're missing more than just your pride. I watched the three of them scramble away in total humiliation. I turned to the CEO with a smirk and gave her a look. See, if I hadn't been here today, you'd be in serious trouble. You're in danger out here, so you should really think about it. Maybe give me a raise or something. I'm actually flat broke right now. I was feeling a bit buzzed, so I stepped forward, ready to call it a night. I casually threw my arm over the CEO's shoulder. But in the very next second, the world spun. When I finally snapped out of it, I was flat on the ground with the CEO pinned on top of me. She had me in a perfect submission hold, locking me down completely. One of my arms was trapped behind my back. I started tapping the ground frantically with my free hand. But the CEO had absolutely no intention of letting go. Sis, you know Kung Fu? You never mentioned that before. Wait, isn't this just a big misunderstanding? Is this because I smacked your ass twice? Reluctantly, I had to give in. Look, that wasn't exactly a normal situation back there. There were three of them, and they had nasty tempers. I was just worried you'd get hurt. I just wanted you to calm down a little bit. But the CEO wasn't listening to my explanation at all. The pressure from her grip on my arm actually started to increase. Boss, please let me go. It really hurts. This feeling of wanting to move but being pinned is unbearable. This woman is seriously tough. You're overstepping your bounds, she hissed. Remember that you're just an employee. I was about to snap back, but then I realized we were pressed together in an extremely awkward position. And from my angle, I could see a few things I definitely wasn't supposed to see. Boss, so you like purple? I've got a sharp tongue too, you know. I looked, and honestly, I just had to say it out loud. Everything was fine for a second, but the CEO just froze in shock. Then she realized exactly where my eyes were wandering. Half an hour later, I was walking with my umbrella hanging miserably from my neck. Stomping away like that, I looked absolutely furious. See what I was telling you? Impulsiveness is the devil. It really is the devil. Now everything is just great. Your star employee has officially lost her job. Fine then, don't bother coming into work. Starting tomorrow, you're fired. Even though the CEO said those words out loud, I could see a flicker of regret in her eyes. Seeing that, I let out a cheerful smile, stepped closer, and looked her right in the eye. They say you're good to your employees. I don't think you can fire me that easily. Besides, I just saved your skin. That was meddling, not saving. She stood up and marched toward the emergency exit. I just stood there, watching her walk away with a slight smirk on my face. Exactly as I expected. When I pulled out my phone, a message from the CEO was already waiting for me. Honey, I'm so sorry. I can't be with you tonight. I have some business matters I need to handle over here. The CEO's reply came back almost instantly. What happened? As I typed back, I looked down at my bandaged left hand. I forced a resigned smile. No, there are some issues with the company projects that need coordinating. I'll be very busy tonight. Don't wait up for me. Next time, I'll definitely make it up to you. Inside, I couldn't stop complaining. Not a single word about my broken arm. Not one. And on top of that, company projects. Fine. I spoke with a bold smile, despite my dark expression. I quickly pulled back my grin and shook my head, signaling that everything was fine. Where do you live? I'll take you home. You're on paid leave until your arm heals. The CEO turned around and started walking away, without giving me a single chance to speak. Left with no choice, I followed her out of the hospital and into the car. Give me the address. I'm taking you back. It seemed like the CEO had zero interest in talking to me. Maybe it's because my presence kept her from chatting with her online date tonight, so she was taking it all out on me. I reached into my pants pocket, looked at her with a helpless expression, and spoke. I'm sorry it's gone. I must have lost it when I was helping you fight. Or maybe it fell out when you were riding me. I can't go back now. The moment she heard me say riding me, the CEO's face turned bright red. Then she shot me a look of pure ferocity. A second later, she grabbed the arm I had in a cast. If you dare mention that in front of me again, I'll make sure this becomes a shattered fracture. Understood? Looking at my boss's furious glare, I couldn't help but gulp hard. I nodded my head instantly. The CEO pulled her hand back and thought for a moment. I'll take you to a hotel. You can recover there. I'll cover all the expenses. No. Ow, it hurts. I clutched my arm, thinking, it's impossible to do anything alone right now, especially in a hotel with no one to look after me. When I heard the CEO wanted to dump me at a hotel, I was the first to refuse. How could I take advantage of this situation if I'm stuck in a hotel room? So I started throwing a bit of a tantrum, reminding her I helped her all night. Are you really going to leave me alone in a hotel? My good intentions really aren't being rewarded. Fine, you're coming to my house. I'll call a locksmith tomorrow morning. As soon as your door is fixed, you're out. Don't cause me any more trouble. Finally, after all my begging and pleading, the CEO couldn't take it anymore. She decided to take me to her place for the night, even if it wasn't the exact result I wanted. My original plan was to move in permanently until I recovered. But this works too. At least I get to see the president's private bedroom. I bet I'm the first in the whole company. I was satisfied, while the CEO drove with a scowl as I lounged in the passenger seat. Soon, she pulled into a luxury residential complex. I looked around the neighborhood in total shock. Even at night, the landscape looked like a royal villa. There were green hills and crystal clear water. I just stared with my mouth wide open. The CEO looked at my face, turned back, and gave me a sharp tug. She grabbed my arm and started dragging me along. In her opinion, I was being way too embarrassing. Hey Lou, wasn't that the beautiful, cold-hearted President Xiao Ku? I've never seen her bring an outsider home. Nothing surprises me anymore. Everyone wants company eventually, but that kid looks like a mess. The CEO kept dragging me forward toward the entrance. I had no idea the security guards were already gossiping about us behind our backs. When we reached the elevator, the CEO finally let out a sigh of relief that she hadn't run into anyone she knew. If they saw her bringing a complete stranger home, who knows what they'd say about her? Right then, the CEO realized she was still gripping my arm tight. I looked at her and whispered, "It's fine. I don't mind if you take advantage of me." I gave her a playful, sideways glance. It was obvious, if she didn't feel at least a little guilty about my situation, she probably would have slapped me across the face by now. I watched as the CEO pulled out her keys to unlock the front door. My heart was pounding against my chest with pure excitement. Finally, I was going to be the very first man to ever step foot inside her private sanctuary. The moment the lights flickered on, I stood there completely stunned. I scanned every inch of the CEO's massive home. Who would have thought her taste in decor would be as old-fashioned as my grandfather's? She lives all alone in this giant house, yet the style is incredibly minimalist. This is the home of a CEO of a publicly traded company? Aside from the basic furniture, there was absolutely nothing else. The lack of personal touch made the entire place feel cold and empty. That room on the left side of the first floor, near the bathroom. That's where you'll be staying tonight, she commanded. And don't you dare cross any lines. If I catch you sneaking up those stairs, don't blame me when I call the police and have you hauled away. The CEO laid out a few more ground rules before heading straight to the upstairs bathroom. The sound of running water filled the house, so I sat on the living room sofa and looked around. The entire place was decorated in a cold, minimalist black and white. There wasn't even a single plant to bring some life to the room. She's a young woman. You'd expect at least a few splashes of pink or some decor in the living room. Seeing this place, I actually started to feel a little sorry for her. In the real world, she's a powerful CEO who has to stay in control of everything. But online, she's just a vulnerable girl who vents her daily worries to me. Right then, a thought hit me. I wanted to change her. I wanted to fully unleash that lively, cheerful girl she keeps hidden away. Suddenly, my stomach let out an embarrassingly loud growl. I had originally planned to go out for hot pot, but so much drama had happened since then. Now, I was officially starving to death. I was about to get up and scavenge for something to eat in the kitchen. But I realized I wanted to see her first, to see my online date in the flesh. I endured the hunger for an entire hour, waiting for her to finish her shower. Finally, the CEO stepped out. She saw me slumped on the sofa looking desperate and asked, "Why aren't you in bed yet?" "I'm hungry, so hungry that I can't even think about sleeping." The CEO looked at me, her expression filled with pure helplessness. She walked downstairs and pulled a carton of cold milk from the fridge. She held it out toward me with a sigh. "Here, take this," she said, her face flushing slightly. "Drink it and get some rest. I'll take you back home tomorrow morning." I looked at the milk and then back at her. "Boss, just this. Neither of us ate dinner. You're not just mistreating me, you're mistreating yourself." Her face darkened, and I could tell she was barely holding back. She looked like she had a sudden, violent urge to strangle me. Instead, she turned around and yanked the refrigerator door open again. She started pulling out every single ingredient she could find in one go. Finally, she clicked the stove on and started boiling a pot of water. I leaned back and closed my eyes for a moment. I just listened to the sounds of the powerful CEO busy in the kitchen for me. I started wondering, what should we name our future children? It's funny, up until this point, neither of us has even told the other our real names. I was right in the middle of imagining our kid in elementary school when a smell hit me. It was the smell of something burning. I jumped up and looked over at her. She was standing there, dumping the charred noodles straight into the trash. Then, she started scrubbing the pot clean. The CEO is a busy woman. She clearly doesn't cook often. It's normal to make mistakes when you're nervous, at least, that's what I told myself. But then I watched her grab a bunch of unwashed vegetables. She just snapped them in half and tossed them straight into the pot. Once the water finally came to a boil, she grabbed a handful of noodles. She threw them in without a second thought. I tried to stay positive, telling myself she probably washed the greens before refrigerating them. But then I watched her crack the eggs. Half the shell fell into the pot, and she didn't even seem to care. I practically leaped off the sofa. This woman, she was definitely trying to poison me. I couldn't just sit there. I couldn't let her keep going like this. "Boss, why don't you let me take over? I can see you're a bit out of practice." I had racked my brain for the right words. I finally settled on "out of practice" to save her some dignity. "Just let me handle this for a second. One more time. Next time, I'm sure there won't be any problems." In that moment, the truth finally clicked. It wasn't that she was out of practice. She simply had no idea how to cook. Looking at her, something stirred in the softest part of my heart. "Boss, just rest. I've got this." With that, I took over the job from the CEO. I nudged her aside so she could go relax. Part of me felt bad for her, a woman like her, who had helped me so much. She wasn't used to doing anything for herself, yet here she was, trying to cook for me. But on the other hand, I was starving, so I got to work with practiced ease. I scrubbed the pot clean and filled it with fresh water. Once the water came to a boil, I moved with precision. I dropped the ingredients directly into the pot. At the same time, I started thoroughly washing the vegetables. The CEO sat right behind me the whole time. She watched me handle the kitchen tools she couldn't master with total ease. She looked stunned, never imagining that cooking could look so simple in my hands. I didn't even notice the CEO was staring at me. I just kept moving at high speed. I cracked 2 eggs directly into the pot. I watched the boiling water and started counting. 10 seconds later, I pulled them out. I placed the eggs carefully over the cooked noodles. Then, I used my chopsticks to gently poke them. The liquid yolk from the center began to spill out. Finally, I added a few drops of sesame oil. Instantly, the rich aroma flooded the entire room. "Are you hungry? Give it a try." I usually cook for myself, so I have absolute confidence. I know exactly what I'm doing in a kitchen. I grabbed the chopsticks and the bowl. I set the noodles down right in front of the CEO. The vegetarian noodles looked crystal clear thanks to my touch. The runny yolk on top made the dish look professional. It took this simple bowl of noodles to a whole new level. I finished it off with a garnish of fresh green leaves. I spoke to her while I finished the plating. I set my own lunch down on the coffee table. I grabbed a mouthful with my chopsticks and blew on it. I shoved it into my mouth, realizing I was actually starving. "Do you cook often?" The CEO's tone wasn't cold anymore. It was full of curiosity. "Yeah, I usually live alone. If I didn't cook, ordering takeout every day would get way too expensive." Ordering out isn't just about the money, though. It's not hygienic. You never know what they're putting into your food. It's always better to cook your own meals. I felt a strange sense of peace just sitting there with her. Watching me eat with such gusto, the boss couldn't help but take a sip of water. She picked up a small portion with her chopsticks and tried it. Her eyes lit up instantly. It had been a long time since she'd tasted anything this good. "Boss, once you're done eating, you should head upstairs. Go get some rest. I'll take care of the rest. I'll clean everything up before I go to sleep." In this moment, I felt so manly standing my ground in front of her. "What about your hand?" she asked, looking at my left arm in a cast. She actually looked worried, and I never expected her to care about me. I turned to look at her and smiled. "It's no problem at all. I'd already caused way too much trouble today. I couldn't just sit around and do nothing." After we finished eating, I kept insisting until she gave in. The CEO finally headed back to her room to get some sleep. I cleared the plates and silverware from the table and carried them to the sink. Just as I was finishing up the dishes, a message popped up on my phone. "Good night, my boy." The next morning, the CEO stepped out of her bedroom. She saw a woman in an apron, busy in the kitchen. I already had sweat on my forehead from working since 6 in the morning. Finally, this massive breakfast spread was ready to serve. "What are you doing?" she asked, her soft side from last night completely gone. "I'm making you breakfast," I replied. "A meal made with care, since it's clear you don't know how to cook." You probably don't have time to eat in the mornings, so I whipped this up. The CEO remained expressionless, sitting in her chair and watching me work. Then, she suddenly blurted out, "After we eat, I'll take you back home." As I fried an egg, my entire body tensed up. "So, I can't stay here after all." "Sure then, thanks for the trouble," I said. I plated the egg, turned around, and approached her with a smile. The CEO didn't say a word. She just took a slice of bread, added the egg, and took a bite. I immediately noticed her expression shift into one of pure disbelief. "Don't you have anything to do at home?" she asked. The sudden question caught me off guard. It left me struggling to find an answer. "Nothing important. If you need me, I can just work from home," I replied. I'd actually been thinking about this since yesterday, since today is the day of the party. "You were injured because of work, so naturally, I have to reimburse your living expenses. I usually don't have time to cook anyway. I'll pay, and you'll cook. Consider it my way of paying you back for your meals." The CEO's face remained stone cold as she spoke through a mouthful of sandwich. How could I not understand what she was really getting at? Clearly, thanks to that bowl of noodles last night, I had already conquered her stomach. "Oh right, I almost forgot until you mentioned it. The medicine on my arm. I need help changing the bandages. Otherwise, I'll just stay here and be a nuisance for a while. How about I become your personal chef?" We reached an agreement quickly. I wanted to stay, and she wanted me there. And she wanted to have delicious food every single day. That was how I ended up staying at the CEO's house. After breakfast, she headed off to the office while I stayed behind. I spent the morning cleaning the place using only one hand. Eventually, I sprawled out on the sofa and sent her a message. "Honey, good morning." She didn't say much back, just a simple good morning. I could tell she was feeling conflicted, almost like she was cheating on someone. She clearly had a virtual boyfriend, yet here she was, allowing a real man to live in her house. To shake off those thoughts, she buried herself in work all morning. She worked frantically, pushing herself to the limit. By the time she signed the last document, she was completely drained. She had to lean on the desk just to find the strength to stand up. "Honey, work is so exhausting, everything hurts," she messaged me. The CEO started complaining to her virtual partner without even realizing it. Ever since I showed up at her house, things had changed. We had spent the whole day talking online without any of the usual sweet talk. She might not have noticed the shift, but I certainly felt it. "You need to exercise more and stop sitting for so long," I replied. "Stand up and move around when you're free. Anyway, love you." The CEO sat back on her sofa, rubbing her aching waist. Suddenly, the image of me cooking last night flashed through her mind. In that moment, her perfect, icy image completely shattered. All her supposed bravery and stubbornness were useless against me. I picked up my phone and called a health specialty store. I ordered a lumbar support cushion with a built-in heating pad. I hung up the phone and smiled. I leaned back on the sofa, feeling completely at peace. This feeling was like having a cheat code for life. I knew exactly what was coming next. The CEO didn't message her virtual boyfriend for the rest of the day. Meanwhile, I walked around her house with a pen and paper. My goal was simple. I was going to remodel her entire living space. Living in this depressing black and white void would drive anyone crazy. Later that evening, my phone started buzzing. It was a video call from the CEO herself. She told me to come downstairs and help her carry some things. When I got down there and saw the scene, I froze. The CEO was standing there with two massive shopping carts. Both of them were overflowing with bags. "I didn't know what you needed, so I just bought a little of everything," she said, looking a bit embarrassed. But I knew this was a great start, because now she actually had a need for me. Since I only had one good arm to work with, we had to do it together. Even with both of us, tackling this mountain of groceries looked impossible. It took everything we had. But eventually, the CEO and I managed to haul every single bag inside. I looked at the living room, now packed to the ceiling, and thought, now this feels like a home. The CEO collapsed onto the sofa, completely exhausted, shielding her eyes with her hand. It was obvious that today had drained every bit of her energy. While she rested, I started organizing the groceries into the fridge, one by one. "You know, boss, there's no need to push yourself this hard," I said. "Everyone needs to take a breath once in a while." She didn't say a word, and for a second, I thought she was just ignoring me. But when I finished and turned around, I realized she had fallen fast asleep on the sofa. I walked over quietly, grabbed a blanket from the side, and gently covered her up. I placed the heating belt I bought earlier right where she'd see it the moment she woke up. Then, humming a little tune, I started prepping tonight's dessert. I can't deny it. In that moment, I had a very specific feeling. It felt like I was preparing dinner for my wife after a long day at work. I spent an hour working like that before finally sliding the dessert into the oven. Just then, the CEO started to wake up. She noticed the blanket draped over her and sat up with a start. She looked over and saw me still busy in the kitchen. She let out a sigh of relief, realizing she had never slept that deeply around a stranger before. Did she really trust me that much already? Her eyes darted to the coffee table and immediately landed on the heating belt. "I ordered that for you," I said. "I saw you struggling with the bags and figured your back was aching." Looking at the date, I calculated that her period was probably right around the corner. "I bought the heating belt and some brown sugar for you too, since you'll need some comfort food over the next few days. I'm hurrying to whip up something delicious for you." I didn't even turn around while I spoke, my hands moving nonstop, but I could already imagine how moved she must have been by those words. I was right. She just sat there staring at the belt and the sugar, completely stunned. For years, she had faced everything alone with no one to look out for her. Even her online partner only ever offered empty words of comfort. But the man standing in front of her now was actually taking care of her. The CEO kept her eyes locked on me, unable to look away. She didn't even realize that I had already finished preparing the meal. Done. The final stage was complete. Today's grilled fish and oyster rice were finally finished. I set the grilled fish and the main course down on the coffee table. The CEO still hadn't reacted. She just kept staring at me. Hey, what are you looking at? Time to eat. Do I have something delicious on my face? I waved the chopsticks in front of her, and once she snapped out of it, I grabbed my bowl and sat on the other side. You're the boss, and I'm just someone you hired to cook. At the end of the day, I shouldn't be sitting right next to the host. I'm very aware of my place. After saying that, I ignored whatever expression she was making. I just started digging into my rice. The CEO took a piece of fish and put it in her mouth, and by the second bite, her eyes lit up with surprise. Just as she was about to praise the food, she turned and saw me watching her. I was leaning on my arm, looking at her with a smug grin on my face. Go ahead, you can praise me. It's pretty good, right? She just stared at my cocky attitude. Humph, it's nothing special. Maybe just a little better than average street food. Hearing those words, the smile froze right on my face. Instant frustration washed over me, but from an angle I didn't catch. The CEO saw my expression, and a faint smirk played on the corner of her lips. Just as I was wondering if I'd made a fool of myself, I noticed the bowl I had set out for her. The CEO's rice bowl was already completely empty. Her cheeks were flushed a deep shade of red. Fine beads of sweat were breaking out across her forehead. She was breathing in short, heavy gasps. Inside, I felt a surge of pure triumph. Look at her. Let's see how long she can keep up the act. It's a little spicy, isn't it? You never mentioned you couldn't handle the heat. After dropping that line, I stood up and headed straight for the refrigerator. Who said that? It's just a little hot in here. Her lips were already swollen from the spice, but she was clearly trying to tough it out. I walked over to her. I placed the peanut milk I just grabbed from the fridge right in front of her. Inside, I thought, stop pushing yourself and just drink it. I'm trying to look out for you. I realized something else too. Her period was due in a few days, and eating food this spicy isn't exactly good for the body. The CEO stared down at the peanut milk. When I mentioned how flushed her cheeks were, she turned an even deeper shade of red. How did you know my cycle was coming up? She stammered. I just smirked. It's right there on the wall. I pointed past the CEO toward the calendar hanging nearby. To be honest, I'd had my doubts for a while. I kept wondering why there was a circle drawn on the same dates every month. After doing the math, I realized those were the days her period started. This month's dates weren't circled yet, but the pattern was obvious. Based on my calculations, the day was fast approaching. This time, the CEO didn't have a comeback. She just lowered her head in silence. She kept complaining that the food wasn't even that good, but she still managed to polish off half the fish herself. Once the CEO finished eating, she leaned back. She sprawled out on the sofa, making herself right at home. I started cleaning up the scraps, feeling like her personal servant. I told you, didn't I? She said. I'm very satisfied with dinner. Keep up the hard work. I just sighed and focused on putting everything back. I made sure every dish was in its proper place. Then, I prepared a warm cup of brown sugar water. I set it down right in front of her. Remember to drink this while it's hot, I told her. You need to start getting some iron in your system now. It won't be as painful for you when the time actually comes. The CEO looked like she was drifting off, only letting out a soft grunt. But her posture was terrible. Despite her back pain, she was lying flat across the cushions. She had to know this was going to be a problem later. She was putting way too much pressure on her lower back. I don't know where I got the nerve, but I reached out and placed my hand on her waist. I pressed down firmly with my right hand. I heard her spine give a satisfying crack. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with curiosity. The sharp pain had finally started to fade. Prolonged pressure like this usually rates a 1 or 1.5 on the scale. It puts too much stress on the bones, so you need to be careful from now on. Even a CEO needs to look after her own health. If you collapse, who's going to pay my salary? I turned away and started cleaning up the kitchen. I knew I couldn't keep acting like this. I was being way too attentive. If I overdo it, she might actually start to resent me. I need to keep things cold and professional moving forward. That's the only way I'm going to survive this. Distance creates charm, after all. I understood that logic perfectly. Honey, are you feeling any better? I texted. I've been so busy today that I haven't had a second to chat. Yes, much better, she replied. But sometimes, things don't go according to plan. It still hurts. And you're not by my side to take care of me. I really didn't know when I'd be able to see her again. Lately I've wanted to hear your voice, but you never agree to a call. You won't even show your face on video either. It feels like we're having a secret affair. I really want to see you. I stared at the messages popping up on my screen, all sent by the CEO herself, and I started to worry. I had clearly taken such good care of her that, well, even I was starting to feel moved by my own efforts. But I didn't dare flirt with her like I used to. I live in her house. If I pick up a voice call, I'm basically turning myself in. Have you eaten yet? I messaged back. What do you want? I'll order it for you. No need. Lately I've been learning how to cook. I even made baked fish by myself today. I'm amazing, right? She added, followed by a photo. A picture of the baked fish appeared on my phone screen. I made that. I literally just cooked that for her. I felt like a total fool. She was using my own cooking to impress me, even if that me was my online persona. By the way, I might have to go on a business trip soon. A job transfer. I'm heading to the mountains for field work, and the signal is terrible out there. I might be out of touch for 10 or 15 days, so I wanted to ask your permission. After hitting send, I followed it up with some proof. I sent over the photos I had prepared last night. Pictures of my humble, old hometown. I had planned this all out, using these 2 weeks for a specific goal. I needed the CEO to fall in love with the real me, not just some virtual version of me on a screen. I even gave this little operation of mine a name. I called it Old Ming's Big Performance. Because of my sudden request for leave, the CEO and I talked late into the night. We talked about everything, from how we met to the little quirks of our daily lives. I kept sending her photos of my village, just to prove that was exactly where I was heading for work. The result of that all-nighter? The moment I saw her leave for the office, I collapsed onto the sofa to pass out. I drifted off, and when I finally opened my eyes again, the CEO was standing right there in front of me. She was holding a stack of documents and asked, "Are you awake? Are you making dinner?" Seeing her back so soon, I scrambled to my feet like an idiot. Instinctively, I moved to go find Vivi, but the CEO stopped me. "From now on, you'll be working from here," she said. "Do you remember that project? The one you messed up last month? The business partner specifically requested that you be the one to finish it. So your work schedule starts right now. This collaboration is incredibly important. I need the full plan ready before tonight. Tomorrow, I'm taking you with me to negotiate with the partner." It was clear she was taking this deal very seriously. The pressure on me started to skyrocket. But what about dinner? Unexpectedly, the boss suddenly rolled up her sleeves and headed into the kitchen. "Don't worry," she said. "I'll handle dinner today. You just focus on perfecting that proposal." I stared at her, stunned by her words. I had my doubts, but I wasn't about to say no. This project was a massive undertaking for the company. It was truly important. Just as I was locked in, refining the video for the proposal, a sudden scream shattered my concentration. I snapped my head up. The CEO was waving her hand around, shouting in pain. Clamped onto her finger was a massive crab claw. In a moment of pure instinct, I grabbed her hand firmly. "Don't move," I told her, keeping her arm steady. I used my fingers to pry the crab's grip open with everything I had. With one final push, I managed to free her hand. I thought, how can someone her age be this reckless? I held her hand and quickly looked for the first aid kit. I found it tucked away in a nearby cabinet. I pulled out the gauze and iodine and started disinfecting the wound. First, I used a cotton ball to dab away the blood on her finger. I even blew on it gently, like I was comforting a small child. Then I applied the iodine to make sure it wouldn't get infected. Finally, I carefully wrapped it in clean gauze. After I finished, I noticed the CEO's face turning bright red, like a cooked shrimp. Only then did I realize I was still holding her hand. "I'm sorry," I said. "You don't need to do anything else. I'll finish making dinner." After we ate, the CEO took on the heavy burden of the household chores. Meanwhile, I sat at the coffee table, continuing to modify the project plan. In my honest opinion, this business partner simply has no brain. I looked over their reference plans again. They were all just the most popular, trendy programs currently on the air, and according to their specific requirements. The goal was to crush them and surpass every predecessor in terms of traffic. The first time I received this plan, I thought it was an impossible task. I don't know who lost their mind and accepted the request, but the money was too good to refuse. But the breach of contract penalty was massive, so high the entire company couldn't cover it. There was no way out. This time, it was a high-stakes race against the clock. This was a direct order from the CEO herself, and the client had specifically requested that I be the one to handle it. So I had no choice but to steel my nerves and get to work. I started by tearing into the original proposal. I added a few more strategies to drive traffic. I thought, if this works, we can finally move forward. I told myself to rest early, but then the CEO herself appeared. She set a fresh cup of coffee on the table right in front of me. Without a word, she turned around and headed up the stairs. I couldn't help but watch her walk away. Her long legs disappeared from my sight as she reached the top. In that moment, I felt a strange warmth in my chest. I went back to work, rewriting that proposal over and over again. It was late into the night before I finally crawled into bed. Deep down, I already knew they wouldn't be satisfied tomorrow either. They were just looking for an excuse to make us pay that penalty. The next morning, the CEO was already dressed and tossed a new uniform my way, but with my arm still stuck in a heavy cast. It was impossible for me to get dressed on my own. So, I got to experience what it's like to have a billionaire CEO dress me. When she pulled my shirt off, my six-pack was fully on display. I could feel her eyes lingering on me, stealing a glance. Once I caught her looking, she spent the rest of the time helping me, with her eyes squeezed shut as she fumbled with my clothes. "Let's get moving." I climbed into the CEO's car, and we set off for the negotiation. The meeting was being held in a private suite at a luxury hotel. As soon as we arrived at the firm, I opened the door and we stepped inside. I immediately noticed the business partner watching me with a malicious smirk. "I've heard for a long time that your CEO is a real beauty. Seeing her today, I can confirm she's extraordinary." They all turned their predatory gazes toward her. But for me, there was nothing but mockery in their eyes. I quickly realized there wasn't even a seat for me in the room. "Please sit. Today we need to have a deep discussion about our partnership." The man leading the talk was a greasy type. From the moment we entered, his eyes never left the CEO. With no chair available, I stood beside her like a common clown. The two employees across from us were even whispering and laughing at me. I could feel my blood starting to boil. But for the CEO's sake, I kept my mouth shut and didn't explode. I just stood there with my head down, enduring it. I've heard your company has quite the reputation. After seeing her today, the rumors are true. But don't you understand basic hospitality? Before I could even react, the CEO picked up her cup and took a slow sip of water. Then she looked every single person in the eye. Do you even know how to speak? She asked coldly. Don't think that just because you're the boss, you can speak without filters. What do you mean you don't understand? Hospitality? What right does he have, as a mere salesman, to sit with us? What right does he have to be at this table? Can these two pets by your side really speak on your behalf? I didn't expect the CEO's queen persona to explode right at that moment. She didn't even look up while I stood there listening, my blood boiling. I never imagined that the CEO being this dominant could be so attractive. The room went silent as they realized they'd crossed a line. Useless, both of you. My salesman is a member of this company, just like anyone else. Tell me, are you two not salesmen yourselves? We just didn't consider the situation properly. Please, we hope you aren't angry. They had clearly planned to give me a nasty surprise the moment I walked in. After all, my previous proposal hadn't satisfied them at all. Fine, since you're so protective of a lowly employee. The waiter quickly brought over another chair. He placed it right next to the CEO. With that, the negotiations officially began. Start your performance, the CEO told me, looking my way like a queen giving an order to her knight. Fine, this isn't our first collaboration, so I'll get straight to the point. Your requirements are impossible. The moment those words left my mouth, the man across from me shot up from his seat in protest. Look, Mr. Lin, we are negotiating in good faith, but your employees lack the necessary respect. Would you consider this a breach of contract? Right then, the greasy uncle's jaw nearly unhinged from laughing so hard. He knew that if our company couldn't deliver the product to their specs, we'd have to pay a massive breach of contract penalty, a price so high it could trigger the total collapse of the company. Don't worry, why lose your patience now? Just because life isn't going your way. Seeing that smug, satisfied look on the greasy guy's face made my blood boil. Especially the disgusting way he was staring at the CEO. It pissed me off. What did you just say? I'm saying this collaboration can continue. However, as the commission party, I need to present you with a demand. Remember, this isn't a request, it's a demand. Secondly, this is the first time a video has been produced this way. The contract states the client must provide the commission party with everything I've already mentioned. Your contract requires a complete project plan, as well as product requirements and a qualification certification. I said this while flipping through the documents, clutched in my hand, making sure they could see them clearly. There was absolutely no company qualification certification to be found. We've been disputing this for 2 months, and all we've received is the contract you requested. You gave us the product specs, but the quality certification isn't the only thing missing. We haven't received a single thing from your company. The moment he heard that, he grabbed a tissue and wiped his forehead in silence. The two of them leaned in and kept arguing, claiming they'd already paid the commission fee. They insisted we just do what we were hired for. What qualification proof? Aren't you supposed to just do the job you're paid for? I just stared at them. It was like I was looking at two complete idiots. I slammed the contract in my hand down right in front of them. The original agreement we signed was for a project with the University of Mexico. That was only to confirm the contract and sign off on the product design. But as for your company's qualification certification, we never signed off on that. We can meet your product requirements. But first, I need to re-verify if your company actually has the capacity to handle this. If you want to beat out the top-tier products currently on the market, then you must provide our company with a complete qualification proof. That means your registered capital, the project plan, and the total pre-investment amount. After laying it all out like that, I picked up the glass of water in front of me and took a long drink. Then, my eyes met the CEO's gaze. I realized I was using the exact same mug that he used to use a year ago. I let out a few awkward coughs to break the tension. Based on the design philosophy you gave us, you need to prove a pre-investment of at least $1.5 billion. If you can't prove that you have the capacity to sustain this project, we can terminate the contract unilaterally. The moment I said that, the other side went completely silent. They didn't even know what to do next because they'd never even considered this problem. They only wanted to use this impossible task to squeeze a massive profit out of the breach of contract penalty. Oh right, I forgot to mention that since we signed the contract info letter, you have a 3-month deadline to show us that qualification certificate. It looks like you only have 1 month left. Of course, I truly hope you can present this certificate. After all, our cooperation is a win-win, but I have to remind you, it's almost the end of the year. The notary office will be going on vacation soon, so you'd better hurry up. If you don't submit it within the established time frame, we'll have every reason to suspect you're trying to scam us for a payout. Though I assume a company this big wouldn't be capable of something so shameless. I stood up, gave a gentlemanly bow, and shook hands firmly. The CEO was surprisingly polite in return. If there's nothing else, we'll be heading out now. I hope we have the chance to collaborate again. But seriously, get that autonomy sorted, or you'll be the ones in breach of contract. And you'll be the ones paying the compensation. After saying that, the CEO and I walked out of the private room. Phew, what a relief. Once I was back in the car, I pumped my fist in the air. I let out a long breath as the tension finally broke. The dark cloud hanging over my heart vanished in an instant. I didn't just solve a major life problem today. I saved the company from a crisis and even gained some ground. So you were up until the middle of the night yesterday finding their mistakes? The CEO's tone shifted from cold and distant to something much softer. I leaned back in the passenger seat, feeling pretty smug about our victory. I looked at the CEO and shook my head, thinking about how close we came. We could never have designed that product ourselves. They were clearly looking for trouble. There's definitely a mole in our company who let that contract get signed. I spent that entire day buried in paperwork. I stayed up until midnight reviewing every clause 5 or 6 times. I didn't stop until I found the loophole I needed. Demanding they prove they have $1.5 billion in assets within a single month? That's a total fantasy, and they know it. But we'll wait until after the new year to deal with them. By then, you can get a legal team ready to file the lawsuit. And make sure to fire the employee who signed that deal. He's definitely a mole. I noticed the CEO's expression change, and I sat up straight immediately. The CEO shook her head and looked down shyly, while my mother stared at the beauty I brought home. My mother asked if she was my girlfriend while the CEO kept shaking her head. How would I dare? It's just a suggestion, the CEO said, looking down shyly. As for how to proceed next, that's for you to decide. After all, you're the boss of the company. Seeing how compliant I was being, the CEO actually cracked a smile. Well done. This year, your year-end bonus is going up by 60%. Tonight, I want to eat sweet and sour ribs, she added, her mood shifting. I moved with enthusiasm, waving my arm forward like a commander. No problem. Come on, let's go home. After hearing that, the CEO turned her head to look at me. I just gave her a warm smile back. It felt like it had been a long time since anyone told her, let's go home together. Ding dong, ding dong. I pulled out my phone and checked the screen. It was a video call from my mother. Son, it's almost the new year. When do you start your vacation? That maniac boss of yours. He hasn't made you work overtime again, has he? As soon as I connected, my mother's kind face appeared on the screen. But her words were a death sentence to me. Because that maniac boss she was talking about was sitting right next to me. No, not at all. Our boss is brilliant, brave, and has everything under control. When did I ever call her a maniac? I blurted out, sweat breaking on my forehead. She's actually very considerate of me. You must have misheard, Mom. In that moment, I scrambled to use every word of praise I could possibly imagine. I denied everything with all my might, trying to save my own skin. But after listening to me, my mother just gave the screen a look of pure doubt. What did you tell me last time? That because of that tiny mistake last month, she docked your pay? You said she counted every penny. You even called her a ruthless, cold-hearted witch. You even asked if she was acting out because of her period. I think that's what you said. Inside, I was screaming, Mom, I beg you, please don't say another word. If she kept talking, I probably wouldn't be making it home for New Year's this year. Son, is there a friend with you? Fine, I won't talk anymore. Your mom knows when to keep her mouth shut. I felt like crying even more. Mom, if you're so smart, why now? If she had realized that a few minutes ago, I'd be safe. What's the point of stopping now? The CEO had already heard every single word she needed to hear. Son, just come home early this year. We have a house full of cats now. Didn't you say you love them? Your father is making good money breeding cats these days. If things aren't going well at that company, just come back and work with your dad. That way, you won't have to put up with that boss of yours anymore. The irony was killing me. She said she'd stop criticizing, then immediately went for the kill. But in just a few sentences, she went right back to talking about my boss. Then my mother turned the camera around to show our backyard. There were at least 100 hungry cats out there, meowing and staring at the lens. Seeing that yard overflowing with cats actually made me feel a pang of guilt. I originally thought that by finding a good job, I'd be the one taking care of my parents. I never expected they'd have to start their own business just to worry about their useless son. I told her, Mom, don't push yourselves too hard at your age. You should be thinking about relaxing and getting some rest. Oh, son, I almost forgot to tell you, she chirped, ignoring my concern. Your father was just elected head of Chung Village, so you're basically a lucky second-generation heir now. As soon as I heard those words, I slowly turned my head to look at the CEO. Right then, I caught her hiding a subtle, mocking smile. The first thing your father did in office was repair the old abandoned village temple, Mom continued. The villagers respect him so much that they're all going to start breeding cats together to get rich. After saying that, my mother sent over a photo of the restored village temple. In that split second, I desperately wanted to stop her before a terrifying thought clicked. But I was already too late. The photo of that restored temple appeared on the screen right in front of me and the CEO. She didn't pay much attention at first, but then her eyes sharpened as she reacted to the image. She pulled out her own phone, scrolled through her history, and froze. She opened a photo on her own device as well. She zoomed in, comparing the two images side by side. Mom, everything's fine. I have to go. I'll visit when I get some time off, I blurted out. Without waiting for an answer, I hung up the video call. I sat there in the passenger seat, desperately trying to act nonchalant. But out of the corner of my eye, I kept stealing glances at the CEO. Take a look at this place, she said suddenly. Isn't this the abandoned temple from your village? I didn't expect her to suddenly shove her phone toward me. She zoomed in on the Chengwang temple in the photo for me to see. I don't think so. Chengwang temples are in every village. It's probably just a coincidence. I see, she replied coldly. Let's just go home. She told me she wanted me to make sweet and sour ribs for dinner. The CEO didn't press the matter any further after that. After dinner, I was busy tidying up the living room. The CEO had already retreated to her bedroom for the night. Then my phone buzzed with a message from her. Are you there? I saw a building today that looks exactly like the one in your photos. The resemblance is uncanny. I don't know if you're still in that area. You haven't replied in 3 days. Is everything okay over there? I want to come find you, even if it's just to see you once. The phone in my pocket wouldn't stop vibrating. I pulled it out and saw these messages from the CEO. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. I felt a wave of self-contempt wash over me. I couldn't even tell the girl I liked how I felt in person. I wanted to be brave just this once. But what happens after that? A breakup? Never seeing her again? At midnight, a knock on my door woke me up. I opened the door and froze. It was the CEO, standing there in her pajamas. Her eyes were closed tight. She looked like she was in pain, and it cut right through me. I didn't even have time to admire her perfect figure. We're going to your hometown tomorrow, okay? She asked. That sudden question caught me completely off guard. I stood there speechless, unable to react. The CEO pulled a laptop out from behind her back. I had someone look into it. There are villages with a Chengwang temple. There are exactly 246 of them. I've compiled them all and compared them one by one. The results match the layout perfectly. The only identical Chengwang temple is in your hometown. Take me there. Listening to the CEO speak, I felt my heart tighten in my chest. I never thought a random photo I took would make her go to such lengths. Boss, why are you so obsessed with the Chengwang temple in my village? There are plenty of famous, effective temples right here in the city. Whether you're looking for fortune, marriage, or children. I want to see someone, she interrupted, her expression turning somber. Do they owe you money? I asked, trying to joke. The CEO simply nodded. A second later, her gaze shifted slightly to the side. Her eyes were red and brimming with tears as she said, he owes me more than time. I have to find him. Will you take me to your home to see it? In that moment, I couldn't think of a single reason to say no. How could I reject this powerful CEO when she was practically begging me? When she saw me agree, she finally left, satisfied. As always, she was fast and efficient. The next morning, the moment I woke up, I found 2 massive suitcases sitting in the middle of the living room. The CEO had already changed her clothes and was sitting on the sofa. I'm giving you 30 minutes to wash up, get ready, and change. Your leave is approved. We're leaving today. She didn't give me a single second to react, just sat there staring at her watch. I knew the countdown had already begun. With my hair a mess, I bolted to the bathroom to wash my face and scrub my teeth. The whole shower and prep took me less than 15 minutes. Once I finished changing my clothes, I stood at the door and gave the CEO a smile. Take the bags down. It's my first time visiting your home, and I didn't know what to buy your parents. Those bags cost a fortune, and I struggled to haul both of them downstairs. I finally managed to load them into the car. After that, I picked up the car keys the CEO had set aside. It's your house, so you drive, she commanded. Without another word, the CEO climbed into the vehicle. She settled herself firmly into the passenger seat. What are you thinking about? She asked after a few minutes of me standing still. She rolled down the window and stared at me with an unreadable expression. I stood there outside the car, feeling incredibly awkward. The thing is, I don't know how to drive. When she heard that, the CEO froze. She pulled off her sunglasses and stared at me in total shock. Don't look at me like that, I said, feeling a bit resentful. I really can't drive. I take a rental bike to work every day. Besides, I've been at the company forever. Have you ever once seen me with a car? I paused for a second and touched my injured left hand. And with my hand like this, I couldn't drive even if I wanted to. Unless you're looking for a death wish. I looked up at her with a smug grin, my expression saying it all. What are you going to do about it? Seeing my attitude, I could tell the boss really wanted to strangle me with her bare hands. She rubbed her forehead in total helplessness. She had genuinely forgotten that I was still injured. After all, I'd been whipping up meals so fast these past few days that she had started seeing me as a perfectly healthy person again. Switch seats, the CEO commanded, her brow furrowed in frustration. She snatched the car keys right out of my hand. Then she started the engine and began the drive toward my hometown. I glanced at the GPS and saw it was going to be a 4-hour trip. Along the way, I told her stories about growing up in the countryside. I told her all about the village, including the times I'd jump into the river to catch frogs. I told her about fishing with my friends and the big yellow dog at the village entrance that always chased me. The CEO listened with genuine interest because she had never experienced anything like it. She had a happy life stolen from her, raised from birth only to be an heir. No fun, no childhood wonder, only infinite knowledge to memorize, and business deals to close. In that moment, the dynamic between me and the CEO shifted subtly. We weren't boss and subordinate anymore, but more like 2 old friends. With my stories to keep her company, the 4-hour trip flew by. Finally, by late afternoon, I arrived back at the village that raised me. Whose luxury car is that? It's incredible. No kidding, just look at that frame. It's matte paint. My daughter said her boss just bought one exactly like it last month. The second we entered the village, a crowd swarmed us, pointing at the car. For years, people only left this village. They never really looked back. So when we rolled up, we instantly became the center of attention. Wait, isn't that Annie Lou's son? It's definitely him. Don't go yet. I never expected you to make it this big after all these years. They were shocked to see how much I had progressed since I left. With all the villagers staring, it felt wrong to keep driving, so I stopped and rolled down the window. The townspeople recognized me instantly. All right, we won't bother you anymore. Hurry home and see your parents. If they only knew you were back, I swear, they'll be jumping for joy. With the enthusiastic support of the villagers, the CEO drove the car toward my childhood home. From a distance, I heard a cat meowing in our yard. A man stood with his back to us, tossing out cat food. He didn't look like a cat owner. He looked like he was feeding strays. Dad, I said, my voice cracking like a child's. My father turned around and froze in total shock. You brat, so you still know how to come home? Everyone, come out quickly. The boy is back. I looked at my father's worn-out feet and the gray hair that had taken over. Tears started rolling down my face before I could stop them. My mother heard the shout and ran out of the house, still wearing her apron. The moment she saw me, her face lit up with pure emotion. She ran over and pulled me into a tight embrace. But her hug pressed right against my injury. Mom, slow down. Your son is hurt. The second she heard I was in pain, my mother pulled back to check on me. Her eyes landed on my left hand, wrapped in a heavy plaster cast. She looked like she was about to burst into tears right then and there. What happened? How did you get hurt so badly? I scratched my head, trying to play it off. I just told her I had a clumsy fall, while the CEO lowered her head shyly and stayed quiet. I went silent, not wanting to dig deeper into the lie. My mother followed my gaze and finally noticed the beauty I had brought with me. I could see her thinking, is this girl gorgeous or what? You must be Osawa's girlfriend, right? She asked with a beaming smile. Mom, look, it's not like that, I started to explain. We're just friends, I tried to say, but the words wouldn't come out right. The CEO interrupted me, offering one last attempt at an explanation. Too bad my parents weren't listening at all, they just kept nodding and grinning. Their faces said it all. You're young, we get it, no need to hide it. Dad, we have guests, go fix something delicious. I'll even let you have a drink tonight. The moment he heard he could have some alcohol, my father lit up with pure joy. I carried the bags inside and asked, since when do you forbid him from drinking? She reminded me about his recent checkup and those liver function issues they'd found. She was firm about it, absolutely no more alcohol for him lately. But since I was finally back home, she decided to let him have just a little bit. It all made sense now. No wonder my father was acting as excited as a little kid. Lena finally stepped forward to introduce herself properly. I'm Lena, a friend of your son's, she said with a polite smile. I heard he was coming to visit for the new year, so I decided to tag along. I hope I'm not being a bother, she added softly. Nonsense. You have no idea how happy we are to have you here, my mother chirped. In all these years, this boy has never brought a single. Well, he's never brought a girl home before. You're the very first. I just stood there thinking, I really hope I'm the last one too. I stayed off to the side, deciding it was better to keep my mouth shut. With parents like mine, the more you explain, the more they misunderstand. We moved to the dining room quickly. My dad had already filled the entire table with a massive spread of food. The four of us gathered around the table to eat. My mom kept piling food onto Lena's plate without stopping for a second. She started rambling on, telling embarrassing stories about my childhood. Every once in a while, she'd remember I existed and ask how I was doing. It was like Lena was her actual daughter and I was just the guest. Up until now, I hadn't even known the CEO's full name. After we finished eating, I tried to help clear the table, but my mom used my injury as an excuse and pushed me away. She told me to take Lena Oxway out for a walk instead. With no other choice, I took her out to show her around the village. As we were walking, a yellow blur came charging straight at me. It was Dewan. I told him to settle down since he used to chase me just to bite me. Now he was trying to lick my face, and I had to struggle just to stay on my feet while holding the big yellow dog back. I smiled and rubbed his head, remembering how he was the most energetic dog in town when I was a kid. But as the years went by, Dewan had grown old too. Even his whiskers and eyebrows were starting to turn white, and I couldn't help but sigh. I pulled a leftover piece of sausage from my pocket, getting ready to feed him. But when I looked down, Dewan had already vanished without a trace. So much for loyalty. I was the one with the food. But one look at a beautiful girl and you're sold, you little lecherous dog. I muttered those words under my breath. Still, I stepped off to the side quietly to give them space. I watched the way Lena Oxway and Dewan interacted with each other. She seemed completely charmed by the overexcited dog. Lena Oxway was terrified at first, but her curiosity eventually got the better of her. She slowly reached out, her interest piqued by the old dog. She couldn't resist and finally started petting Dewan's head. Dewan's tail started wagging even faster than before. Watching the two of them play together, it was clear he really liked her. I couldn't help but let out a small sigh. After playing for a while, Lena Oxway stood up and looked at me. She had a specific request in mind. Take me to see your village's Chengwang temple, okay? We headed toward the temple on the small hill, a place that used to be packed. Back then, the incense at Chengwang temple never stopped burning. But as the years passed, the younger generation started leaving the village. Everyone was heading to the city to find their fortune. Slowly, the temple became more and more deserted. Luckily, my father was a very smart man. Once he became the village chief, he took action. He personally oversaw the temple's renovation. That project brought its old vitality back to life. The CEO took a couple of laps around the Chengwang temple grounds. Then, she pulled out her phone. She pulled up an old, grainy photo and zoomed in. Back then, the preservation of history wasn't exactly a priority. Qinglong Temple had been nothing more than a pile of ruins. Looking at it now, it felt like two completely different worlds. Yet, the core architectural style remained untouched. Lena Oxway held her phone up to compare the images. Her eyes darted back and forth quickly. She confirmed it. This was definitely the place. After staring for a moment, she turned to me and asked, "Can you take my picture?" I nodded, not really knowing what else to do. I took the phone from her hand. I carefully adjusted the angle to catch the light. I snapped the photo of her standing before the temple. Lena Oxway immediately reached out. She grabbed the phone back from me. She hit send on the photo without a second thought. "I'm finally here," she whispered to herself. "Will you really come to see me now?" The evening breeze caught Lena Oxway's hair, blowing it across her face. Seeing that look of loneliness on her face, I couldn't help but want to reach out to her. I wanted to pull her into a tight embrace. I wanted to tell her out loud that I was right there and that I loved her. But in the end, I never took that step. The truth was, the moment we arrived in town, I knew the lie I told at the beginning was falling apart. It was going to reveal itself, because the signal here was at full bars. There was no way for him not to receive her messages. Lena Oxway is so sharp that she had probably already figured it out. She realized the truth about her online boyfriend. It wasn't that he couldn't see the messages, he just didn't want to answer. "Sensei, if one of your friends was suddenly avoiding you, why do you think that would be?" Lena Oxway's face was clouded with disappointment. She tucked her phone away. Then, Wanmu spotted me and spoke up. "If it's not because it's untrue, then it's just not true. Maybe he wants to pay you back, or maybe he just has his reasons." She seemed satisfied with my answer, at least. She walked straight toward Qinglong Temple, where fresh incense sat on the altar. She unwrapped a random bundle. She lit it and placed it carefully into the burner. Then, she closed her eyes. I stood there wishing I could just appear right in front of her. If I could just let her see me, that would be enough. Lena Oxway stood still for a long time. When she finally opened her eyes and turned around, our gazes locked. The Qinglong Temple in this town isn't actually that small. I looked at her and smiled, and Lena Oxway let out a heavy sigh. She walked over to me. She reached out and took my arm. "Let's go back," she said. Seeing her like this, so dejected and broken, I didn't know what to say. I had no choice but to let her drag me back home. We barely reached the house. Before we even stepped into the courtyard, we overheard my parents talking inside. "Do you really think that girl is just a friend?" my father asked. "Or is she actually our son's girlfriend?" "Impossible. You can tell from a mile away she's wealthy and noble. Even the gifts she brought are labeled in English." Hearing them go on like that, Lena Oxway didn't go inside immediately. Instead, she grabbed my arm, and we eavesdropped by the courtyard gate. But what if those two really are a couple? My mother wondered aloud. That would mean our old Chin family is finally having some good luck. I just worry a girl like that will demand our son takes her last name. Listening to the elders gossip about us like this, I just wanted to find a hole to crawl into and hide. Lena Oxway, however, remained completely unfazed. "But that young lady, the way she looks at our son, I can feel it. She definitely likes him." Hearing that, I turned my head in total surprise. I looked at Lena Oxway, searching for any reaction in her eyes. I saw nothing in her gaze. I cleared my throat loudly, standing right there at the courtyard entrance to cut their conversation short. If I let this go on any longer, who knows what other rumors they'd cook up about me bringing Lena Oxway home. My parents jumped up immediately to welcome us back. They rushed to bring out fresh fruit and snacks from the house. They wanted to make sure the two of us were well fed. Lena smiled and said, "By the way, Uncle, Shin took me to see the Qingguan Temple earlier. I heard it was recently renovated. Was that your doing?" My father beamed. "The village elected me as the director. I wanted to do something good for everyone, but it wasn't that recent. It's actually been almost 6 months since the renovation." Lena Oxway just nodded and didn't say another word, but I knew I was caught. I had sent her that photo of the old temple just 3 days ago. The timeline didn't match up at all. Fortunately, she didn't press the issue any further. When night fell, my parents gave up their own room for the two of us.